Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call this intimate gathering to order. We're in a fantastic space here in the Beanie. Thank you ever so much for being here today. Storytellers is the name of the exhibition, and obviously we've got an extraordinary collection of artists from all sorts of different disciplines. And Charles Williams, I'm very pleased to say, is here with us this afternoon. I presume that you've probably seen his work. I'm presuming that you've been into the gallery and actually taken a look at the paintings that are on the wall, and that you'll have a bit of an idea about some of the other stuff that he does as well. And my intention is to have a bit of a ramble through. Well, we'll start off talking about the paintings that we've actually got here in the exhibition, and then we'll go through a circuitous little ramble through who you are, your life, your influences, what you're thinking about, and then hopefully end up back at the paintings again. We'll sum it all neatly up at the end.
Sounds like a plan.
We'll see what happens. So Charles, very briefly, just to kind of give a very potted history as we start off, who are you? What would you describe yourself? What would you describe yourself as?
Oh, Rob. Oh, cracky! We were just saying. I was just. Rob was just pointing out how irritating my self-deprecation is, my tendency to want to be self-deprecating, and I apologise for that. Right now, but you know, but the trouble is, if you're asked that sort of question, who are you? What are you? The temptation to say, oh, just some knob. It's almost impossible.
Okay, well, I mean, the reality is, of course, that you are an artist and that you are an acclaimed artist. People do recognise the work that you do as art, and I know that.
Yeah. That's a nice basis to start from.
I'd say so. I'd say so. So
yeah.
we had quite a long conversation yesterday afternoon around all sorts of things, and one of the things that let's start off with the paintings that are actually in the exhibition first of all. So the two paintings that we're talking about feature a bear and a rabbit.
Yes.
Now, you are quite reticent about describing why you choose to paint the images that you do.
Yeah.
But let's try and dig into it a little bit.
Yeah. The reason I'm reticent is that I know that there are loads and loads of things going on, and it's a voyage of discovery for me as much as it is for anybody else. So I'm not. The way my process works or the way I paint is not that I get in front of my canvas and go, right, I'm going to paint something that's going to tell everybody what it's like being a bear. You know, that's ridiculous, because there are so many other. If that's how you wanted to communicate, there would be so many other ways of doing it that I think would be a lot better than the world of fine art. What I think I do is I have a sort of vague idea, and it sort of comes to some kind of coalescence as I'm making the image, and the ideas about what it's about also kind of become clearer, and then sometimes less clear, and sometimes things get added to them.
So with these two particular paintings, did you have any idea what so the rabbit sitting at the table, who appears to be writing, and to me appears to be kind of flicking the bird at the bear.
Yeah, you said that. Yes. And several people have said that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So does that mean something to you? The image that you've created there, was there a message that you were trying to convey, or
it's really difficult. I don't really know. I think what happened with the rabbit is he started off. Christ knows why it's a rabbit, but it's a rabbit in front of a desk, and he's sort of writing. And then as the drawing was going on, and then later the painting was going on, I began to think about what it's like, thinking about things or writing or being creative, I suppose, making things. And the idea of him being inspired or being inspirational sort of came to my mind. The inspired writer. And so after a while he began to sort of represent somebody. He began to represent a writer. He began to represent somebody being inspired from somewhere, I think. And then a friend of mine said, he's an academic. I was doing my PhD at the time when we were talking about it, and he said he said rabbits and academics have something in common. They both like to chew over bits of shit. Which I thought was quite interesting. And then so that was and he or they have kind of coalesced now, I think, as this. I've tried to paint rabbits, not writing, and that's less successful. It's less convincing to me. So it seems to be his natural place.
Because the paintings that you have been doing for the last few years have been a lot of
all creatures.
Creatures.
Yeah.
You used to do a lot more straightforwardly human people and characters.
Yeah.
And you made a deliberate choice to move away from that and towards the animal. So why did you do that?
But the thing about painting people, the thing about making people is see, it's interesting how many times I say a friend of mine said, or somebody came and I think that's very interesting that how intersubjective the activity is. Anyway, a friend of mine came to a little exhibition I had, and she's a social worker, and she said I love your paintings. I think they're lovely. I love the way you paint the figures, and they're all nice. I want to buy one, but every painting I look at, everyone I look at reminds me of another one of my former clients. I thought, bloody hell, that's really interesting, isn't it? There's something that holds, there are indicators that I'm using that sort of hold the figure. It'll be clothes, it'll be pose, it'll be another person came up to me once, years and years ago, and said, and I had no idea I was doing this, but she said, why is it you just paint young girls? Isn't it a bit pervy? Oh, fuck, do I really? Jesus. So I've got to change. So the animals, I'm trying to get away from these any kind of class or social or any kind of indicator, as many of those indicators as I can.
So you want to say something human without making it obviously
without it being human. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk a little bit about the actual pragmatic technique of how you create your images at the moment. And you've gone through lots of different stages in your career of how you do stuff. But these particular paintings here, you managed to get a real sort of density in the picture through watercolour. And most people obviously associate watercolour with being a bit watery, that it's it's not a very opaque substance. It's not like oil paints or acrylics or emulsion. You can't splosh it on in quite the same way. You have to do some. So how do you generate that sort of depth and texture in the painting?
Well, there's two answers to that. One is I just bash away for a long time, and I repaint, and the reason I can do that is that I've discovered this particular kind of paper, which allows you to take the paint off and put the paint on without it really falling apart for ages. What I really wanted to do, what I've always wanted to do, is to be able to be the same artist doing watercolours and sculpture and painting. I sort of made a sort of special effort to keep the same thing going. I want to approach different media because I want to see what that does to me, in the same way that I want to approach different sizes. You know, I don't want to just do little paintings, and I don't want to just do great big paintings. I want to do many of them, many different things, just to examine, to rework what I am as an artist. So, yeah.
So, I'll go back in time, and we'll sort of try and find a bit about you as a young man, first of all. When did you realise that you wanted to be an artist as opposed to being a train driver or an astronaut? You know, whatever it was. What was the moment when you realised that creativity had to be at the heart of what you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question, because I don't really know. I think, to tell you the truth, I think I don't really know about that. I don't really know about that because it never really entered my mind that I wanted to be creative. But one of the things I do know is that I was very pleased to discover that if I did art, I could go to a place called an art college, because you know, I could see what it was like. If you're a writer, there's nowhere to go to learn to be. It wasn't then anyway. You didn't go to a special place to be a writer. There was no way I was going to be a musician. But art college was a special place, and so you could go along, and the people there were also be artists, and they would show you what it was. And I think that's a really interesting thing, because I think that in our society, I didn't know any artists. I come from a fairly well-to-do, you know, middle-class kind of family.
So your dad was a chemistry professor?
Yeah,
and
my
your mum
was
was
a solicitor.
A solicitor.
So, but they were both from very relatively poor backgrounds. But then they weren't terrifically social. So I didn't actually know any artists, and I didn't know anyone who knew any artists.
Did you know it was possible to make a living as an artist?
No. The only person that I could see that made a living as an artist was my art master at school, and actually I rather envied his life because he basically sat around chatting most of the day, and he got free accommodation. So. What's not to like?
Has that been the career you've been attempting to pursue ever since?
I remember saying to my parents, they were going, "Well, what the hell are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Clark seems to have quite a nice life." "No, you cannot do this." Yeah. But seriously, going to art college seemed to be the thing, because it sort of explained. It would be a way of working out, you know. They would tell me there what being an artist was.
And
was
did
about.
they? Did you find out? Did you?
Yeah.
And you've been reacting.
But by that
ever
time,
since?
it was way too late.
Was it? Right. Okay. So what do you mean by that? Because you've been an art teacher yourself, haven't you, for 10 years or so?
I've been a lecturer. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting, because that is like being a parent and thinking, I'm not going to make the awful mistakes my own parents made. What I think of it, I don't know. I mean, I think part of the problem for me was that I did go to art college, and I did very well there, and I achieved, you know, I did the things one wanted, you know, one as an art student ought to do, and I ended up being what I describe as an artist. I ended up making paintings that other artists think are great, but, you know, the rest of the world don't. And that's a problem.
And that's a problem in terms of sort of the pragmatics of living, or in
exactly.
your reaction to it.
Exactly. The people who tell you whether your work is good, they're artists. You know, they're not dealers, or they're not people who they're not people who are involved in the world of selling art or putting art around. They're people who are telling you how to do it. So, you know, it's like being a writer and who's done very well at A-level English. You know,
Right, okay. So unless you become a published novelist and
Yeah.
actually sell a few copies, then
Yeah,
it's sort of
yeah.
irrelevant if it's just sitting in a drawer somewhere.
Yes.
Right,
yeah,
okay. So if we go back to your art college days, and we had quite a long conversation about all sorts of things yesterday afternoon, but one of the things you said, there was a period where you knew the name of every gallery and dealer in
Yes.
London.
Yes. Yes.
So you clearly had ideas about, wanting to get more widely shown and known.
Yeah.
Why do you think, did that not happen because you didn't actually aggressively pursue creating art that was saleable? Or what was the missing bit there?
I didn't think there was a missing bit. I mean, I did okay. I did actually get fed up with it. I did okay, and then there was the 2008 financial collapse, and that kind of coincided with my being given a bit of teaching in higher education, and I've been showing every 2 years in a London gallery somewhere for some time, most of the time since I'd left the academy schools, and it was going okay, and I was showing here and there, and then I had this show in 2008, which the gallery I was with, I'd had a fantastic show the year before, and they said, "We'll have another one in 2008, not 2009. Can I have a bit more time?" No, come on, let's do it. And of course, 2008, it was like 2 weeks after the big crash. Nobody in the world wanted a painting. Some people did, but it was just terrible. And because I had this teaching, I thought, well, maybe what I should do is stop this commercial art business stuff and see what it's like teaching, and see if there are other values, see if there are other things you can learn.
And did you find those?
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah, to some extent. It's quite interesting. I mean, it's an interesting business.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting and challenging business. I started out, where I was teaching was here in Canterbury, what used to be Canterbury Tech, and I was teaching people who, it was the lowest prestige art degree you could do. So I was dealing with people who were there for all sorts of reasons, and I thought that was fantastic. I think it was fascinating, having to communicating with people who had even less idea of what the art business, the art world was than I had when I was their age, even less, and so much less power in the world, and so what do you give them, and how do you help them, and where does it how do you engage with them? It was fascinating. And
so there's quite an interesting kind of paradox at the heart of that, isn't there, between the creative impulse and the success of actually selling something, and whether or not something is art is somewhere in the middle of that. Do you know what? So the question that we had with Steve earlier on, what is art? Is that a question that you can answer? What the difference between highly produced drawings or paintings or whatever they are that aren't art, and something that's got genuine heart to it that is?
I really don't know. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday, and the first thing that comes to my mind is the word bad faith, which I think the words bad faith, which I think means, but even that is not really true. So no, I don't. I can't come anywhere near that question. I don't think. Not sensibly.
No. Well, you've got lots of paradoxes going on around
my
everything.
whole world, my whole life is paradox, contradiction, and irony. There's everything that sums me up.
So the painting, one of the things we talked about yesterday was Annabelle Carracci's The Butcher's Shop. Now that is for you one of the most influential paintings and artists in your life. So give us a bit of a sense, first of all, what that picture is and why it's important to you.
The Butcher's Shop is it's a painting. It's 12 foot by 8, or 8 foot by 12. it's a monumental painting. It's a painting you could walk into, and it's hanging in the Christchurch College, Oxford Picture Gallery, and it's a painting. It's late 16th century, late 16th century painting, and that's what it is. It's a butcher shop. There are three butchers. There's one of them is actually killing a lamb. There are lumps of meat hung up. There's a man selling some meat to what you would recognise as a Swiss guard, one of those people that guards the Pope. And there's an old woman in the background, and it's very dark, and it's sort of framed so that you can. It's sort of framed so that it looks like an alcove in the wall. So when you look at it, it's almost as if you can walk into it. And of course you can't, because it's just a painting, and it's 500 years old. But there is something about how the faces are painted and how the people are painted that kind of spoke to me anyway, immediately. Now I looked into the history of this painting, and it turns out that nobody really knows why or how it was painted. It's too big to be anything but a commission painting, but nobody knows who commissioned it. And it's a painting of a butcher shop. It's the most everyday, the most grubby realist painting you can imagine. Carracci is a contemporary of Caravaggio, so and in my view a more interesting painter. And he's talking about, I think he's talking about the experience of the everyday, but we don't know anything about that. We can't know anything about it. So for me, it was like a sort of raw experience of a picture. You know, it was a painting that you can't say. You can't. Nobody can go. This means this. You know, you can't. There's I don't know. There's God sacrificing Isaac. You know, nothing. You can't say what it is. And so it has all those pictorial excitements about it that openness and that ambiguity. It also rang huge bells with me, and Paula, you'll know about this, and same with Kate. If you go to the academy schools, you're taught by people who you're taught acres of time, hundreds of years, but you know, dim echoes. The Carracci are in the discourses, in Reynolds' discourses. He talks about them as the greatest painters, and he says these are the paintings that these are the painters that the students at the Royal Academy School should emulate. The Carracci. We know nothing about them now, but I'm sure that there are lessons, there are things, there was stuff that I learnt there that was resonating with me when I saw this.
So how old were you when you did see that?
It's only 10 years ago, maybe, or 5 years ago.
And so was that one of those moments then when you saw that, did that kind of inform what you wanted to do going forward? Did you kind of look back at the stuff that you'd done and gone, I need to reframe everything that I've done?
Nothing in any specific way like that. Just simply making sense. You know, you suddenly think, I see. You know, or I did when I did more research. I see. You know, this is why I like this kind of work. This is where all this comes from. Nobody actually said it. And had I been told stuff like that, when I was 22, I would have gone, I don't know what you're talking about. Shut up.
So when you were 22, you went to the Royal Academy. What was that experience like? Did it give you the groundings in things that you wanted at the time?
It was really interesting because I'd gone to Maidstone to do my degree, and that was a very open kind of course, and they questioned everything all the time, which I think is a very good idea. But one of the downsides of the questioning everything all the time and not doing it not doing it very well, I suppose, was that they kept saying, whenever I wanted to do some drawing, they kept saying, no, it's just academic drawing. I don't know why you're bothering doing this. It's just academic drawing. So in the end, I thought there must be something called academic drawing that I could do and I could learn it. And the Royal Academy was a place where you could do it. And it was very dim, you know, it was very dim. It wasn't it? It was dimly, it was a dim echo. It was a dim echo. There was some very old people, and they never really articulated what this thing that they were teaching was. But I learned afterwards, I researched afterwards, and I found out afterwards what it was and how it all sort of worked. What it was like for me, really, in personal terms, was bloody terrifying, because I went from a little tiny art college on top of a hill in Maidstone to the Royal Academy schools, where the most extraordinary artists were trained and taught, and round the corner was Cork Street, and every now and again some guys in suits would come round and buy everything of the person next to me was painting, or the person on the other side. It was it was frightening, but interesting and fascinating.
But your career, you have had a good career in terms of the fact that you are a recognised artist. It has played out well.
Sorry about the self-deprecation.
Well, and you are also president of the
Royal Watercolour Society.
So, are you pleased about that?
Yeah, it's nice.
How did it come about? How did that happen?
Oh, probably they had no idea who could take on this ghastly task and knew that I would just go, oh, yeah, right.
Is it an onerous thing to be? Is it just what does it actually involve?
Artists generally, or artists always, are self-deprecating, and everyone sort of stands back. Oh, I couldn't possibly, and that's just a normal sort of thing. And then you get people who really want to do things and change everything, and they're the people you want to watch out for. So I think it's nice, because I don't mind getting up in front of people and making speeches, and also there are things that I would like to do with it, and I'm sort of doing those things.
There are things that you do want to do with that role.
Yeah.
Do you know what they are? Can you share them with us?
Christ, exhibiting societies are really odd institutions. They are. I've been a member of 2 or 3 of them over the years. Again, because other artists like my work more than the buying public, and so they're just fascinating, because they're groups of artists who sort of get together and in order to exhibit, and so when they and they have sort of a certain sense of prestige and a certain history and a certain sort of idea of who they are. And like many people, like many organisations, or in fact many people, when you start questioning who actually are you, it all sort of falls apart. Like the Royal Watercolour Society, most amazing history. It starts off in 1804, and it's in order to provide a forum for people to come and buy watercolours. Simple as that. There were queues around the block for their exhibitions. There really aren't queues around the block now, but it's survived over these years, and it sort of has this sort of idea of what it is. And one of the big problems with it, with the Royal Watercolour Society, is that people no longer paint either in oils or watercolour. There's a thing called acrylic paint now. So what the hell do you do with that? So in what sense are we the Royal Watercolour Society? Well, because half of you are painting in acrylics quite thickly on boards, so it sort of looks like oil paint. So that's a problem, a question that you have to deal with. The other thing is as an institution, it doesn't have any money. It doesn't get money from exhibitions. It doesn't get money from anything really. We pay subs, and the subs go into renting, into leasing galleries. That's it. but it's sort of this big thing, and so people apply and people ask it for money, and people talk to you as if you're the head of some kind of institution or like some kind of CEO, and I can't sack anybody or pay you an extra 25,000 this year. I can't do it. The Royal Watercolour Society particularly has a problem, or a fantastic asset, depending on how you look at it, in that we have a collection which is every time a new member is elected, they give a diploma painting to the Royal Watercolour Society. So we now have this collection of paintings, which is worth millions. But we have to insure it, we have to look after it, we have to maintain it, we have to answer inquiries, we have to put stuff out, and we have no money to do this with. But of course, but nobody knows that. So we're getting all these letters about, what about this artist? Yeah, some people do now. But I've been saying this for years, but nobody pays the slightest bit of attention. So yeah, that's the problem.
So watercolour because if you say so and so is a watercolour painter, they'll probably think of a landscape.
Idea.
Yeah,
yes.
And obviously the work that you do doesn't fall into that category at all.
Yeah.
And part of the conversation we had yesterday was around the fact that that we looked at one of the paintings on the wall in your kitchen is of two dogs. And it's exactly the same kind of composition style as the watercolour paintings that you do, but you've done it in oils.
Yeah.
So you've got a kind of a process around creating works that look the same but using different materials.
Yeah.
So what is it about that is important to you?
Well, I think that is to do. I think that's to do with what I was saying earlier about allowing images to coalesce. The painting in this particular way, in this idiom, which I think it's an idiom, is a method that allows me to bring in ideas. It's not a closed medium. I don't have to work out what it is, outline it, fill it in, and go away. Mm-hmm. I am able to develop the painting as it goes along, and that seems to me to be an answer to the question, what is painting for now? For me, it's sort of, I think it's something to do with some kind of meditative process that allows an image to emerge.
And one of the things you said to me yesterday is that actually the time you spend in your studio is your best time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, apart from the time I spend with my wife.
Well, obviously that. Yeah. But in terms of sort of like you actually actively enjoy the process. The process is the whole point of doing it.
The whole point of painting. There's this question that's always asked of artists, which is to do with your discipline, and is it easy to get into the studio? And the big problem for me is actually spending time outside the studio doing really things that will make my career work. Grant applications, that sort of thing, because all of those things seem to me to be so utterly tedious compared to being in my studio, just going, is this blue right? Oh no, I could do a little. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, that's and I could spend all day doing that, and the next day, and the next day.
So in an ideal world, somebody else would take care of all the business, and you would just paint and paint and paint and paint.
And if somebody could come and clean my brushes as well, that'd be really good.
So you talked a little bit about the fact that other people had all their artwork bought. Who are the people who do buy your paintings? You do find markets. Where does it go?
This is a really interesting question. When I was at the academy, and it's sort of you are connected to this sort of thing called the art market. I had this sort of idea that when I was properly successful, what would happen is that there would be a sort of never-ending line of people in fur coats and beautifully tailored suits just walking past me to my dealer and signing, and I wouldn't ever have to bother. The reality of it is that the people that buy my paintings are just very peculiar, and you know, they'd sort of have to be, and I can always, you know, I can always recognise them. It's sort of outsider people generally. People, yeah. It's most peculiar. A friend of mine is a very well, very highly successful painter of town and landscapes, and we've actually been to his private views where we've seen him literally standing in the middle of a room with a bright red face, and waves of women in fur coats coming towards him, just waves, and each one passing, and another, and the money just, you know, going up and up. And such envy.
Now, you told me a brilliant story about your dad when you did sell a painting.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah. So this is a good anecdote to demonstrate the cultural background from which I come. The year after I left the academy schools, a woman had started to collect my paintings, and she bought one off me for £1,600, which is a lot of money for me then, and still is a lot of money. Anyway. So she bought this painting off me, and I was very pleased about this. And I phoned my parents, and I got my dad. Normally I get my mum, but I got my dad. This, okay. And I said, oh, he said, how are you? And I said, I'm fine. I said, Dad, I've just sold a painting for £1,600. And Dad went, oh, that's great. That's well done. And that's brilliant. What kind of idiot spends £1,600?
So we'll kind of wrap things up a little bit, and I'll throw things open to the floor as well. But when we look at the paintings that you're doing now, have you got an idea which direction you're taking your art in now?
Right now, the only thing I can think about is weirdly, and this is going to make me sound like anyway. The only thing I can think about at the moment is blue. I've got this thing. I've got this thing about with the colour that I want to make it I want to make it as dull as possible, but to glow as much as possible. And that is the thing that's sort of fascinating me at the moment in a way that I can't resist going back to the studio over and over and over again. It is blue with a load of monkeys in front of it, but that is what it is.
But you do have kind of almost transcendent moments when you know you've got it right. Got it right to your own satisfaction.
Yeah, there are moments. I mean, this is the reason why it's so. This is the reason why it's such a good thing to do. It's just that in this sort of process of coalescence, which I think is that's a nice way of putting it. But there's sort of this process of bringing these things closer and closer together, not knowing what on earth you're doing, all the time. And one of the things I say quite frequently about this is that Anna, my wife, and I, we work in the same sort of place, and she's a jeweller, and she works on one side of the corridor, and I'm on the other side of the corridor, and her day is spent, because I can hear her doing it, her day is spent banging away on bits of silver and swearing and cursing, because each one has to be exactly the same as the last one, right? And I'm in my studio, and I'm swearing and cursing because each one has to be different as possible from the last one. So this is very sort of strange sort of thing going on. But yeah, I mean there are just moments where that sort of coalescent thing comes you're not going to like this anyway. So where all of these, and there's a sort of rush where you know all the little bits are going to work, and the thing that you're worried about no longer seems to be worrying because it works with that bit over there, and this colour here is working, and it's all just coming around. It's this kind of rush, and it's fine, it's brilliant. Oh my God, it's fine. Look at it. Oh Christ, it's like that. The thing is, somebody I know wrote a book about a painter. He's a painter himself, and he wrote a book about a painter, and he described exactly this feeling, this sort of big rush of we know everything is going to work and everything, and he said I've talked to a lot of people about this, a lot of artists about this, and lots of people recognise it, and it doesn't mean you're any good.
You're so self-deprecating. We'll start to wrap things up now. Have we got some questions? Does anybody want to ask anything of Charles directly? Please, if you want to. Yeah.
Charles, I think you mentioned me some time ago you went to a public school here in Canterbury. And I'm just curious to know if the environment is not conducive to your own personal creativity and you as a visual artist, whether you were in a very different kind of environment there, and whether you felt isolated or whether that spurred you to even more to follow a career in the visual arts.
Is the answer to that. I mean, it'd be really easy for me to go now to say, I always wanted to be an artist, and these horrid people were so nasty to me. I think I'm just so terrified the whole way through my schooling that I was just happy to do anything really. But what I thought was really interesting, what I think is really interesting about that thing is the class thing there, because I think I wanted to be an actor at the time. I was doing I worked a lot in, I did lots of the drama stuff there, and people loved that, but nobody thought it was a good idea to go to art college. Really, it was like not really a good thing to do. So there was that. Yeah, there was that. But I wasn't. You have to say I wasn't. Nobody was forcing me not to be an artist or anything. To be honest, I was an awful child, and if I'd wanted to do anything, people would have loved it. But I didn't want to do anything. So.
A lot of the time it just feels like it's a battle with yourself.
It is a battle with yourself, isn't it? Yeah.
You're actually quite good at something you've discovered. Or maybe I'm not interested in that, but we're not in the same space, aren't we, ever? So,
no.
And that's what you've been describing.
Yeah.
You can never be entirely sure.
No, you've no idea, do you? I used to really like, I did like being at college and painting next to people. And I had a great friend, and I used to share a studio with, and it was lovely. We'd have acres of time painting away, and then one of us would come up with something, and we'd just make each other laugh. It's just nice. Or we'd just talk really deeply about what we were doing, and that was really lovely. Yeah. But I guess after a while you don't really want. I always think that's one of the reasons why people really like teaching you like teaching. Because the thing about teaching is, as an artist you spend years and years on your own farting around, oh bloody hell, and then you have an exhibition, and gallery people go, these are fantastic paintings, they're lovely, we'll sell them, they'll be brilliant, and then they don't, and then you have to sort of say, I'm really sorry, and they say, can you get your shitty work out? And you go, yeah, okay, sorry. And, that is basically the relationship you have. So that's what an artist's life is. So then you get a job teaching. And it's fabulous because people talk to you all the time and take you seriously, and they listen to what you say, and sometimes people help you out, and it's great. So you've become an adult. But
you at one point were you not part of a group?
Please don't talk about the Stuckism.
I just mentioned it. Yeah. No, but it's an interesting.
But the Suckism wasn't about talking about art. I mean, we never sort of sat around and exchanged ideas about how we were doing.
Is it an attitude?
It was mainly people being grumpy about Tracy being more famous than them.
Not like now.
I met you when I came for the interview for the illustration degree at Christchurch University.
Oh, did you? Right, okay.
Right.
Yes.
Now I'm at the end of a fine art degree at UCA.
Right.
I've seen all the art schools closing down gradually. Art is closing down at all these other universities. We're lucky to have UCA. Where do you think it's going to go with the art schools?
It's a really interesting question, and yeah, it's a really interesting question. I'll tell you one of the things that I think about that because I'm obviously it was great teaching, and I regretted it when we were closed down hugely. I don't know whether this rings a bell with you, David, but one of the things that I found as the years went on was that there were fewer and fewer young working class men in my that I was teaching, and when I did my degree, it was mainly young working class men. It was boys who had talent and skill and interest and excitement, but weren't academic, right? So where the hell are they? And I'll tell you where they are. They're all doing games design. And I think what it is the thing that they had. It's applicable to the world of games design, and they can just do it. That's fine. But it has something else too, and that is an actual reason. Because the art world is so difficult to define, and so riven with things that you will probably never understand, things I certainly don't understand, things that you cannot make allowance for. There are nepotism. There's nepotism. There's simony, and there's patronage beyond belief. You wouldn't believe it. The stories I can tell you. So, but the world of games design is fantastic. It's an art form that people can do. There's a place you can sell it. There's other people who are fascinated by it, and it builds up and builds up. And yeah, it seems to me anyway, looking at the art business as it sort of trundles along, it seems to me to be getting more and more exclusive and more class ridden and more tiny and unenterable. Inaccessible, I suppose, and so yeah.
On your Instagram, you said, "Ask me lots of questions, including why I don't believe teaching anymore."
Right? Yeah. It's a sort of flip sort of comment, but yeah.
You do make flip comments.
Yeah.
They've got that seriousness as you're talking,
You told a lovely story years ago about going to approaching a gallery and saying the guy said, "Oh no, we can't sell these." But if you did this and that and basically gave you a tutorial, and you waited for the end of the tutorial and then said, "Does anyone ever do the things that you're?" And he said, "No, not really."
Do you think of the characters that you paint telling stories?
Because you are going to read stuff into it. Anybody is going to read stuff into it.
Yeah.
I don't have an idea or a program. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. The funny thing about Sidney Cooper's paintings was that there was a canard about him. There was a sort of strange story about him, which was that he couldn't paint hooves, and that was why all the cattle were walking through marshland. And it's utter bollocks. You can go down there and look, they're perfect. But people used to say this over and over again as if it were a strange thing, isn't it? Narratives.
we expect a blue bear?
Yeah, probably.
So you're all dressed in blue today.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It seems to be obsessing me, strangely.
Well, I mean, it's been an absolute a pleasure and a privilege sitting here, trying to unpick some of the paradoxes that constantly crop up in everything that you say and do. But keep going, keep doing it, because your stuff is great. And there's a lot of people who are here today because they do genuinely like your stuff and what you do. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles.
Can I have a bear, please?
Oh, bloody hell. What does a bear do?
As a commission,
Oh, yeah, hang on. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not doing it. I've already signed it. Look, I have signed it. Look, there, I've signed
When
it.
did I get you to sign it?
I don't know. Yeah, there. All right.
I nearly got it twice. It's going a bit far, isn't it?
Oh, dear.